for our next project, we are creating a work of art inspired by the Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama, and we are looking at this famous work of art of some mushrooms. And you probably notice lots of fun patterns and polka dots, and in the background there are lines creating shapes that could go on and on and on forever, and that is called an infinity pattern. And for this project, we're using two pieces of paper. One of them is a colorful piece of cardstock, and on this paper, we are creating an infinity pattern. So using markers, metallic markers, paint sticks, we are drawing an infinity pattern on our colorful cardstock. I have a few examples already made. Here's one where I did sort of diamonds, one with wavy lines, one with crisscross lines, and one with polka dots. So think about colors that look nice together. I use normal markers for this, a Sharpie for this, and normal markers for those two also. And then a piece of white cardstock. We are dividing it into 4 places. And the background we are coloring first with paint sticks. So I colored these with 4 different color paint sticks that I thought would look nice on my background. So my background is yellow, and I did cool colors for my 4 colors on here, and I did the same thing. I made patterns in each section. And now what I'm going to do is create a collage. A collage is a work of art using cutting and gluing. And so you can choose whatever you want to make. I will make first an example of some mushrooms, and then I'll make some other shapes. But basically, on your background paper, you will be gluing some fun shapes that you cut out of this pattern paper. So what I'm going to do first is decide what I want to make. Once I decide, I will draw the shapes I need on the back here. I folded this paper where I have my different colors like this, so that when I turn it over, I can see exactly where my sections are to draw on. So since I'm doing mushrooms, I'll probably draw mushroom tops. I might even have space to do mushroom bottoms. But whatever you decide to make, let's say you decided to make pumpkins, because Yayoi Kusama also does pumpkins in her art. If you decided to do pumpkins, you could draw your pumpkin shapes and then use another piece of paper for the stems. I have some extra colorful cardstock here that I might have to use for my mushroom stems. So what I'm going to do now is make a video of myself cutting my shapes out of this paper, and I will speed it up, and I'll probably use some of those scrap papers also to help make my shapes. And once I cut them out, I will give you some more directions. Okay, I have all of my mushrooms cut out, and before I glue them down, I am actually going to glue them together because I have one more step before I am going to glue them to my paper. Okay, my mushrooms are all glued together. So like I said, you don't have to make mushrooms. You might make acorns, you might make pumpkins, you might make hearts with wings or something like that. But I did mushrooms inspired by the artist. But before I glue them down, because we're making patterns on the background, depending on what colors you used, it might be hard to see your mushrooms standing out against your background. So before I glue these down, I'm actually going to shade around where they'll go. So what I want to do first is arrange my shapes where I'm happy with them, make sure I'm happy with the composition, and then with my pencil, I'm just going to trace around each one, and then I'll do a little bit of a shadow around each one. So I have the outline of my mushroom, so I know where to put my shadow. I'll go ahead and video that. Now that I've outlined where all of my mushrooms are going to go, I've got a black oil pastel here, but you could also use a black crayon or a different color oil pastel or a different color crayon, or even the wide part of your marker to outline these. But I'm just going to use black oil pastel because I have a light color paper, so I know the black will stand out. But if you have a dark color background paper, you might end up wanting to use a different color. But I basically want to make kind of a shadow outline of these so that they stand out from the patterns in the background. Okay, I finished gluing my mushrooms down, and something besides shadows that helps things stand out are highlights. So I am going to use a metallic marker, but you could use a paint stick or a light color oil pastel to add highlights, and that's just a little shiny part. The good thing about making these outlines before I did the shadow is I know exactly where to put my glue so that I could glue these down really, really well. So I'm going to add some highlights now, but like I said, you don't have to make mushrooms. You could make, here's one where I made acorns and pumpkins, any kind of shape that you like, but Yayoi Kusama is kind of known for mushrooms and pumpkins. So let me add my highlights now. All right, I'm finished with my mushrooms. I went back and added some little shiny highlights, and I also went back and added a little shadow under all of the caps, and I did the same thing on my acorns, added a little shadow under the little acorn tops. So that is what we're doing today, making a collage inspired by Yayoi Kusama.